So how can I avoid surge? A short, simple answer is keep your lift under control. Now, there's a lot of ways that we have to do that. That could mean having proper GPM through the heat exchangers, okay, the evaporator and the condenser, because our lift. So the definition of lift is our condenser pressure minus our evaporator pressure, okay. So the difference between those is your lift value. Now, recently, I've really started embracing the saturation methodology, where it's not based off of pressure, but the saturation temperatures. So take your condenser saturation and your evaporator saturation, subtract those from each other, and that gives you your saturated lift value. And when you take that approach from a saturation, then the pressures themselves really don't matter so much, because the core fundamentals, whether you're talking a high pressure YK or a low pressure CVH, both of them have a fairly similar surge profile, if you will. I want to be careful saying it that way, but a YK can't handle high lift as well as a CVH, but we can discuss that they run really well in say a 25 to 45 degrees of saturated lift, especially at load. So at load, they can both push that 45 degrees of saturated lift really well. So when we break it down to the saturation value versus a pressure value for the lift, then at least for me, it helps process the data faster, and it doesn't matter which machine I'm looking at. I know a basic value if I'm paying attention to the saturations. That's one thing I like about that version of it. So our condenser saturation minus evaporator saturation, that's our saturated lift value. Now, we want to keep that lift value as not as low as we can. That's not true, but low enough, okay? Because if we go too low, that's where we get into the choke territory. Sometimes that could mean we don't have enough load on the evaporator, but we're not able to cool the condenser down, right? So if we have a low evap load, but we have a hot condenser, that's going to push a really high lift.